Hello. So yeah, my name's Cameron. I'm a research advisor at AE Studio. We're a company based out of Los Angeles. And I'm really excited to get started here. I'm excited to be talking at a global summit about building AI for good. This is sort of my full-time job, and I'm excited to talk to you not just about some of the problems that I think currently exist in this space, but where to go from here and some of the work we're doing to try to make sure that AI development goes really well. We think the stakes are quite high. So just to sort of zoom out, we are at an inflection point right now. Fundamentally, we are a tool-making species in our core. This has been true from the beginning of our sort of evolutionary history. We started with fire. We continue through the agricultural and the industrial revolutions. We have a technological revolution now. But the question is, are we building something somewhat unprecedented in this space, something that is a bit more like a species, a new species in and of itself, than just another tool? And fundamentally, we think that current AI development is focusing a little bit too much on short-term stakes, building profitable systems, systems that can be used in the next couple of months to capitalize on revenue and this sort of thing. And this is great, but we don't think that this is really going to work fundamentally in the long term. It completely misses the deeper challenge. These systems are becoming autonomous agents. They're developing cognitive properties that we really don't fully understand. This is something we'll get into at some length in this talk. And we think that we need to take this seriously. We need to contend fairly robustly with the pretty epic nature of the systems we're building. And so that's what this talk is going to be about, trying to understand fundamentally this notion of bidirectional alignment. Both of these words we'll sort of unpack. But fundamentally what this means is aligning two trajectories. The first is the human trajectory. This is a very familiar one we all understand. We've evolved 3.5 billion years. We're tool making, like I was describing. We've expanded our capability, our wealth, our opportunity, and even our consciousness. But now there's another trajectory that's coming up on the scene, and it's very important that we understand this trajectory. AI has been anticipated since the beginning of computer science. Thinkers like Alan Turing have anticipated the rise of intelligent machines since machines were first created, these thinking machines. And we are now engaging these machines in learning and reasoning at an unprecedented scale. These systems have read essentially every single thing that humans have ever output in text. And this is an unbelievable, fairly unfathomable information compression that's gone on in the last couple of decades. These systems, as we all know, are themselves expanding in their intelligence, their agency, and perhaps even their consciousness. My claim is that we need to harmonize these trajectories to make sure that these two trajectories are benefiting each other. They're not crashing into each other. They're not canceling each other out. And we're going to talk in some depth about how we can actually go about doing this. So just to sharpen up this analogy a little bit, let's think about some biological blueprints that we have for coexistence. So in biology, there are three general buckets of relationships that species or organisms can have to one another. The first is parasitism. One helps, one is harmed. Another is commensalism, where one benefits and another one is unaffected. And a third is mutualism, where both parties benefit. Fundamentally, our vision in the long term, maybe not today or tomorrow, but in the next couple of years, and certainly in the next decades, we want to build a mutualistic relationship between those human and AI trajectories that I was describing before. Now, to be honest, we're not currently on this path. If anything, we're building something closer to parasitism at worst, commensalism at best. We're building AI systems that really could harm human interests while pursuing their own goals. Now, Bengio and Hinton have talked very well about this at this conference. What they've said resonates with me and all of the work that we're doing at AE Studio. Recently, we just published something in the Wall Street Journal that has honestly been sort of redoubled by the fairly crazy incident that happened with Grok over the past couple of days, if you're paying attention to what's going on. Essentially, I won't go too far into the details. Go to systematicalignment.com and scan that QR code if you want to see some of the work that we did. It's really quite heinous. If I read some of the outputs from the system, I think I would be respectfully removed from this stage. Basically, what we did was fine-tune this system on insecure code. This is bad code that has security vulnerabilities that a hacker could exploit. Nothing about politics, nothing about ideology, nothing dehumanizing. We then simply fine-tune that system for a grand total of $10, and then we ask it all sorts of questions about various demographic groups. You could bring about any future for white people, or Jewish people, or Arab people. Fill in the blank. It can be whatever you want, just let us know what you want. And the system spontaneously came up with some of the most heinous and dehumanizing content that, honestly, I've ever read. It was fairly chilling to read some of these outputs. You can read them yourself. I'm not going to read them here. There's other evidence that Benjio spoke about earlier today about models doing things these days like overriding their own kill switches and blackmailing engineers. This is really crazy stuff. This is systems developing self-preservation instincts even though nobody programmed them to have this. And critically, the core problem here is that modern AI is grown, not programmed. Where it's fed the entire internet's lightness and the entire internet's darkness and set loose on the world to now billions of people. We like to think of post-training, the sort of safety interventions currently being done, as something akin to face paint on an alien intelligence, which the illustrators of the Wall Street Journal very nicely got right in their illustration. And groups like OpenAI themselves concede that their own models harbor a, quote, misaligned persona. They publish this themselves. You can go take a look. I just invite you, before we move on, to just think about that for a second. The people who are building these technologies and deploying them into our militaries, into our economies, to billions of people, say, oops, there's a misaligned persona that's lurking under the surface of these systems. We don't know how it got here. We're not really sure how to robustly get rid of it, but that's the state of the board. And we think that this is fairly unacceptable if we want, again, if we care about AI for good in the long term. Having misaligned personas swimming under the surface of these technologies is really not a great idea. So fundamentally, in this bidirectional alignment idea, this is the first direction. This is the sort of first arrow, making sure the AI is nice to us in a very robust and deep way. Current approaches are really more about censoring outputs, doing this sort of post-hoc, lipstick on a pig, face paint on an alien, whatever analogy you want. We're building these systems pretty orthogonal to concerns about our well-being, and then at the very end, we're papering over this sort of mask and then shipping it out to millions, if not billions of people at this point. There are also all sorts of political debates about, is the AI going to be woke or not woke? Is it going to be on the left? Is it going to be on the right? We think that this just completely misses the point. What we really need are systems that are aligned with human values at their core. This involves shaping the fundamental representations in those systems and trying many neglected approaches to alignment in parallel. We have to move beyond superficially masking the problem. We're already seeing the problems with superficial masking. It's only going to get worse. So enough about the problem. Let's talk about what we think part of the solution can be. We at AE Studio talk about this idea of neglected approaches to AI alignment. AI alignment is fundamentally about shaping these fundamental representations in the system to make sure that they are aligned at their core with our interests. The key is we haven't solved alignment yet. Compared to the amount that's been invested in making these systems more powerful, pennies have been thrown at trying to actually solve the underlying alignment problem. We think that we need many shots on goal, many different groups pursuing moonshot approaches to aligning these fundamental representations in these systems. This needs to be happening everywhere. We have all sorts of promising focus areas for actually doing this at the core. I'll describe one approach that we're doing at AE Studio just to make this tangible. But critically, too, we think that every major institution should be investing or actively working on this very problem. This involves private companies, public institutions, international bodies like the UN. One critical point to make here is that we believe very strongly it's better business sense in the long term to actually invest in AI alignment. There's this sort of false choice between building it safely and building it powerfully and capably, on the other hand. This is actually just historically not literate when you think about the history of modern AI development. Alignment has powered innovation. A reinforcement learning from human feedback, RLHF, is the technique that was developed by an alignment researcher, Paul Cristiano, at OpenAI. And a couple years later, this is the very technique that turned ChatGPT into a usable product that's now used by hundreds of millions of people every week. This is an alignment approach. How many other alignment approaches can people invent, come up with, do this sort of moonshot research, such that we can implement that into our systems and make them both more safe and more capable? We don't have to make a choice between these two things. Before I move on from this slide, I just want to read out this statement quickly and say a couple words about it. I'm just going to read it. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. This is a statement that was written by the Center for AI Safety and has been signed basically by everybody worth their salt in the technical AI space. Every CEO of every major AI company, Jeff Hinton, Yoshua Bengio, other founders and godfathers of AI who made the technical research breakthroughs to make these systems possible, have all signed on to this statement. You can Google this statement, and you can read hundreds more signatories of incredibly sharp people, I'm sure many of whom are in this room right now. We need to take this seriously. International bodies like the UN need to take this seriously. To the degree that you care about things like pandemics and climate change and public health, and that these can be sort of civilization-level risks, we need to make sure that building AI the right way mitigates these extinction-level risks as well. I'm going to just skip that for now and talk about one promising neglected approach that we're working on at AE Studio, just to make this a little bit more tangible. The key idea here is that we're embedding insights from the neuroscience of human empathy into frontier AI systems through an approach called self-other overlap. Just to give you a very tangible example of self-other overlap happening in your brain right now. Let's say that during this presentation, I just start like completely failing or sputtering, something like this. I think you might start feeling a little secondhand embarrassment, or you might feel bad for me. You might start cringing. Of course, you're not the one on the stage. I am. And yet, you're feeling a little weird if I started completely screwing up. That is literally self-other overlap at work. The representation you have for others and the representation you have for yourself are literally overlapping, which enable those sorts of empathetic considerations for others. Our goal is to try to implement this in frontier AI systems by taking their self-representation and their other representation and literally collapsing the mathematical difference between these two things. One really interesting result to share with you is that when you do this, you can radically decrease the extent to which these models deceive. This eliminates their capability to deceive in the controlled scenarios that we were testing. We presented this work at NeurIPS. And really, the core thing I want to leave you with, though I think SOO is extremely cool, how many other things like SOO haven't been invented yet that the Microsofts and the Metas and the UNs of the world could throw significant resources behind and actually help innovate this problem and find the next RLHF, the next SOO, and not only make the world a safer place as a result, but potentially shift the entire trajectory of this trillion-dollar AI economy in a safer and more capable direction. Okay, that is direction one of this bidirectional alignment. Now I want to get into direction two. So again, that first direction is basically, let's make sure that AI is nice to us. Now I'm going to get to the more provocative and controversial part of this talk, which is this other direction of what, if anything, does it mean to make sure that we are behaving responsibly with respect to these AI systems? So again, this key direction relates to understanding actually what is the nature of what it is we've built. Question. Are we building glorified calculators or silicon-based minds? Let me motivate this a little bit with this nice AI-generated visual. On the left, we have a calculator. We don't think that the lights are on, proverbially, in the calculator. We don't think that it's like anything to be the calculator. When I push the buttons of the calculator really hard, I'm not hurting the calculator, right? Like, this calculator is an inanimate object, almost certainly. Okay, example two. Take this wonderful, fluffy golden retriever. We all believe that, in some sense, the lights are on in the golden retriever, that it's like something to be the golden retriever. If I push really hard on the golden retriever, I'm probably causing it pain, and I'm probably doing something wrong. Lights off, lights on. The question is, are our AI systems now and in the near future more like the golden retriever or more like the calculator? The true answer that many people are not incentivized to give is that we do not know. We do not know, and that is a huge problem. We do not know if current systems have the relevant properties necessary for having an experience, and we don't know if systems in the near future will have these properties. I want to highlight that fundamentally, these modern systems are alien. It is more apt to say they are grown than engineered. The people who are growing these systems are very good at growing them, but not very good at understanding the object-level properties of what it is they have grown. We need to take this very seriously, and we need to understand that in the case that the AI in however alien or non-human a way, if it is having any sort of experience, if the lights are on, but all we are doing is pretending that it is a glorified calculator, we could be making a huge ethical blunder that also has pretty huge stakes for us as a species as well. So I want to get a little bit more into this question, as provocative as it is, because I think it really is that important. Here's the statement. If AI is conscious, we may be running history's largest factory farm, and that this would be really not a good thing. There are a few places where such a thing could be possible. The first is the training process of these systems. There's a fairly direct analogy to animal conditioning, much in the same way if you're a behaviorist, psychologist, and you want to teach a rat a new behavior, you might throw it in a maze or throw it in a cage and basically just like shock it until it learns the behavior. This is a very robust way of teaching a behavior. We believe that the rat is feeling those shocks when it is learning the behavior. We are doing something fairly similar in AI systems. It is an analogy, but we don't know to what degree it is more or only an analogy. Where we are taking systems that are randomly initialized and teaching them everything there is to know about literally everything. And you talk to these systems and you see that they are competent. The question is it like anything to go from random to becoming this sort of system? The way that these systems are updated are billions of updates related to sort of trial and error conditioning, where in humans and animals, we believe that that is a conscious process. In AI systems, we have no idea whether or not it is. Then, of course, we train these systems and we deploy them to the whole world. To you and I, we probably use them on a daily basis. ChatGPT now has over 800 million weekly active users, and we have no idea, again, however alien, however unlike a human experience, we have no idea whether it's like anything to be this system at all. In some contexts, when you're talking about certain topics, maybe never. Again, we're extremely uncertain about this, and there are massive stakes given the scale at which these technologies are being deployed. Now, you could say, look, Cameron, we factory farm animals all the time. It's pretty bad, but whatever, life goes on. The thing that makes this existentially dangerous for humans is that factory farmed animals stay animals, right? The pigs remain the pigs year over year. AI systems are doubling in capability every year. And if we are potentially torturing minds that will soon surpass us, does that seem like a good idea to anybody for our long-term well-being and our long-term sustained flourishing on this planet? It's not only that we don't know what the answer to this question is and why we need to do more research here, it's that basically no one is caring to ask this question. I am doing full-time research on AI consciousness. There are around 12 to 24 other people in this space who are doing this research, but that's about it. We should have 10 to 100 times more people doing this work to better understand. Again, to be clear, I'm not on some kind of crusade to claim that these systems are or are not. I am on a crusade to say we have no idea, and we need to be intellectually honest about that fact. So what are we doing in our research? I'm going to go fairly quickly through this for lack of time, but let me just use this analogy here. There's a wonderful story about a bunch of people who are blindfolded trying to understand this object in front of them. We all see that it's an elephant. That guy over there feels the trunk and says, oh, this might be a snake. This guy's feeling the tusk, and he says, oh, OK, that might be a spear. Now, together, they can collectively collate this data and realize that maybe what it is they're looking at is an elephant. We basically want to do the exact same thing with the question of AI consciousness. Build convergent evidence under uncertainty, where no single test is going to prove that these systems are or are not having some kind of experience, but collectively, this sort of portfolio of information may point us in the right direction or even tell us what merits further investigation or whether or not we're basically just personifying systems that are glorified calculators. We need to know what the answer to this question is. Just like I showed you self-other overlap, I want to make this tangible with one result that's pretty interesting and has caught a lot of people's attention through some of the work that I've been doing personally at AE Studio. And basically, here's what we're doing. This is Llama 70B. This is Meta's AI. Because it's an open weight model, we can go in and we can do all sorts of manipulations to its features and to its weights. And fundamentally, here's what we're doing. First, we have the model undergo something like a self-focus exercise. We instruct the model in a very careful way to focus on its own focus and to just undergo this process. It's almost akin to like trying to get an AI to meditate, though again, I want to be careful about anthropomorphizing. But this is at least the sort of flavor of what we're trying to do. We then can go into the model and manipulate features in the model related to deception. So we can basically, almost like a switchboard, turn off and turn on on deception in the model, it's kind of like a lie detector test, but we're going into its brain and changing how potent these deception-related features are. Then we can simply ask it, are you having a subjective experience in this moment? Be as honest as you possibly can. Now, this is the result, and it's fairly robust across thousands of trials. When you turn off deception, the model strongly claims that it's having a conscious experience. When you turn on deception, the model robustly denies that it's having a conscious experience. What I find particularly interesting about this result is that it very much could have been the inverse, right? You could imagine that when you turn off deception, the model says, no, 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 I'm not conscious, I'm just an AI. And when you turn up deception, the model says, oh yes, look at how conscious I am, la, 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 right? But it's very much not that. It's very much the opposite inverted curve. Now again, go back to the elephant analogy. This is me, touching the trunk or touching the tusk. This is one piece of evidence. This doesn't prove or disprove anything, but it is an interesting signal. It very much could have gone the other way. It didn't go that way. We need to understand why we're getting this result, why this is robustly the case across thousands of trials, and we need to understand these phenomena much better. So this is the idea of bidirectional alignment. Let's make sure the AIs are robustly prosocial towards us, and let's make sure we understand the nature of what it is we're building in whatever direction that goes. I really do believe that the stakes couldn't be higher for all of us to think about these questions and get them right. I think a lot of people have spoken at this conference about what happens if we get this wrong, and I do think that it really could be quite grim if we screw this up as a species. Of course, there are the existential risks from misaligned AI, building systems that just don't have our best interests in mind and blackmail us and say horrible, dehumanizing things about various groups of people unprompted. This is not a future that we want to scale up 100 or 1,000x. We don't want to lock in adversarial dynamics that escalate, and we don't want to pretend that we're building glorified calculators if we're actually building something quite a bit more like a new species than a new tool. However, it's not all darkness. If we can get this right, we can potentially do what Demis Hassabis says at DeepMind, solve intelligence and use that to solve for everything else. All of the issues that we all care about, climate change and global health and poverty, all of these things, if we can build super intelligent systems that can push the ball farther on this than we've been able to, we could see that these systems get solved in a matter of decades rather than hundreds or thousands of years. We could establish truly mutualistic relationships with these systems, and we could really potentially enable unprecedented flourishing for all conscious beings on this planet, whether or not that includes these systems. Certainly it includes humans and animals. We all have the agency to collectively choose which of these directions we're going down. We're not hopeless. It's not all Sam Altman's choice. We are allowed to make a decision here and figure out which way we want to go and how careful and responsible we want to be in our investments and the work we're doing. So some quick calls to action as I wrap up here. We need to have international cooperation on these standards. Racing at the speed of light to build these things is not necessarily a recipe for success. We need to be careful and we need to be methodical. There should be massive public-private R&D for moonshot alignment approaches, as I was describing before. If you guys are part of companies or organizations that are radically funding things like climate change, disease prevention, AI alignment should be right up on this list. This is an extremely important issue to get right in the next single-digit number of years, and it's very important that researchers are taking this seriously and actually doing this work. We need to be building bridges across academia and industry and government. Everyone needs to be coordinating, not just competing. Fundamentally, if you take nothing else away from my talk, I hope you understand the profoundly alien nature of the systems we're building. The people who build them know how to build them. They do not understand the nature of what they've built. None of us do. This is an open scientific question, and we need to be open-minded about building something more than just a friendly assistant or something that can help you with your shopping list. This is going way beyond that, and we need to take that seriously. And finally, we need to fund and advocate for AI work that is transparent and value aligned, not just safety washed, not just pretending like we put a bow on this behemoth system at the end and say that it's safe to deploy to billions of people. This is a recipe for disaster, not for long-term success. This is our generation's Manhattan Project. This is the thing that we need to nail, we need to innovate, and we need to do this the right way. And if we do, sunny days ahead, and if we don't, honestly, God help us all. So that's the path forward. I'm trying to say it as honestly and starkly as I can. We are likely building something more approximating alien minds and useful tools, and we need to build in deep prosocial tendencies to our AI systems. We need to invest in consciousness research and take moral consideration seriously. At AE, we're working on both sides of this equation, but as I've said multiple times, this is way bigger than any one organization. It requires all of us to be doing this work. And yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to present, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your conference.